This just in, we have new information about what detectives are finding in the Las Vegas home of the man who opened fire on innocent people in a New York high-rise this week. We're also learning about multiple mental health episodes and an arrest in his past. The note that Shane Tamura had on him in New York after killing 4 people showed that he claimed to have suffered from CTE from playing football. But there's a new note, a second note found in Vegas that reportedly may shed more light on what this man was actually struggling with. And we're also learning that he may not be the only one involved in the awful tragedy that took place in Midtown Manhattan. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Hey, before we get started with this episode of On the Case, and we do have a lot to talk about, I do need to take a moment and make an announcement that those of us here at Law&Crime, we are working on something new and we want your opinion. So we put together a quick survey. What this is all about is having your voice be heard. Let us know what you want to see on Law&Crime. Again, it is a short survey and we'll be picking 10 people at random to receive free Law&Crime t-shirts who take this survey. So let your voice be heard. Go down, you can see that we have the link pinned in the comment section of this video. Now let's get into the story that's really been the talk of the nation since the horrifying scene played out in Midtown Manhattan earlier this week. And this investigation into what happened on Park Avenue, it has gone cross country with detectives from New York going to Las Vegas to try to learn more about the shooter who allegedly was targeting NFL headquarters. Shane Tamura is the name of the shooter, and he lived in Las Vegas, reportedly with his parents. Police say he drove cross-country starting last week, driving to New York to carry out this attack. Police say he was in New Jersey just a couple of hours before the shooting began around 6:30 Monday night. The NYPD commissioner says 2 groups of detectives from the NYPD are going to Las Vegas to search Tamura's house and interview people involved. And we are learning there is someone who police consider an, quote, associate of Tamura who is going to be interviewed. I'll get more into that in just a moment. Now, we know that Tamura went to 345 Park Avenue because that is where the NFL's corporate offices are located. Now, after opening fire in the lobby of the building, this shooter took the elevator to the 33rd floor, where he shot more people before turning the gun on himself. The NFL is on the 5th floor of the building. Police believe that this shooter got into the wrong elevator bank, and that brought him up to the 33rd floor. Right now, one of the big clues that detectives have is that note that was found on the shooter's body on the 33rd floor. Even though he claimed to have suffered from CTE, we don't know if that's true. CTE can only be diagnosed after someone dies. And even though he was allegedly targeting NFL headquarters, we are also learning that there may be more to this story when we talk about a potential motive. So here's what we know about this shooter's background.
How'd you guys come through?
We definitely had to stay disciplined. We were down 10-0. And we definitely had to stay disciplined. Our coach kept saying, don't hold your heads down, don't hold your heads down. We just had to stay disciplined and come together as a team.
That is video that's posted to the YouTube account Daily News Prep Sports. This was posted 9 years ago, but this week it's gone viral as the name Shane Tamura has now become a notorious name because of what he did in New York. Now, we do know that he played high school football. This was video after a high school football game in the Los Angeles area where he grew up. And in the note that was found on his body, Mayor Eric Adams says that Tamura claimed to have played in the NFL. Let's be clear, he never played beyond high school. He never even played college football. He then moved to Las Vegas. This is a picture of a home that police have searched in a gated community west of the city of Las Vegas. The New York Post is reporting that in that home, Tamura left a note, and it was to his parents. Specifically, it seems his mom. And it read something like, according to the Post, quote, "When I look into you and Dad's eyes, I see complete disappointment." Tamura's dad is a former police officer with the LAPD. He served for 27 years on that force, according to KNBC in Los Angeles. The station is also reporting that Tamura had 2 mental health episodes, one in 2022 and one in 2024. And in one of the cases, he had to be put on a 72-hour hold. ABC News is reporting he also was arrested in September 2023 for trespassing at a Vegas casino. Apparently, this was related to him trying to claim $5,000 in winnings, but he wouldn't provide identification. Security there asked him to leave, but he wouldn't budge, and that led to that trespassing charge, but it was later dropped that year in 2023. Now, even though he had those documented mental health issues, again, believed to be in 2022 and 2024, he still had a concealed carry permit out of Las Vegas. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch said that he used that permit to buy a handgun just last month. And that gun was found in the BMW that he double parked outside the building in Midtown before the shooting. Before we get back to this episode of On the Case, I need to take a break and bring you a law and crime legal alert. If you received a Depo-Provera birth control shot and were later diagnosed with a brain or a spinal tumor called meningioma, you may be eligible for a lawsuit. Our partners at Morgan & Morgan are investigating claims that patients weren't properly warned about this risk. It is free to check, takes just a few minutes, and you don't pay unless they win. So you can scan the QR code on your screen or click the link below to find more information. Also, you can go to www.forthepeople.com/LCDEPO to see if you qualify. Now, as far as the assault-style rifle that he used in this shooting, the NYPD says that Tamura assembled it himself and a, quote, associate purchased the lower receiver for the gun and then gave it to Tamura. The NYPD is interviewing that person as well as others as part of their investigation in Las Vegas. Now, Tamura most recently worked as an overnight security guard at the Horseshoe Casino in Las Vegas. He was supposed to show up for work on Sunday, but he never did. And according to the NYPD, he was already on his way to New York. They tracked his BMW driving through Colorado on Saturday, and then he was in New Jersey around 4:30 on Monday. That was the day of the shooting. Those shots were fired around 6:30 Monday evening. We're also learning more about the people who lost their lives in this attack. This is video of the dignified transfer of the body of NYPD officer Dinarul Islam. He was 36 years old. He had been on the force just 4 years, and he came to the United States from Bangladesh and then decided to get into law enforcement. He had 2 young sons, and his wife is 8 months pregnant, and he was doing the job that he loved to do, the NYPD commissioner said in a statement. Another person who lost their lives, this man, Aland Etienne. He worked as security at the high-rise. This is a picture that his brother put on social media. He said his brother was not just a brother, but a father and a son. Quote, "Our hearts are shattered, and we're asking for your prayers and strength as we navigate this painful time," his brother wrote on Facebook. Wesley LePatner, she was a wife and she was a mom of 2. She was an Ivy League graduate, and she also was a high-ranking executive for the investment management firm Blackstone. She had taken cover behind a pillar when she was killed. Julia Hyman was also an Ivy League graduate. She went to Cornell, but she was just starting her career. She graduated just 4 years ago. She worked for Rudin Management. That is the company on the 33rd floor that the shooter went to when he took a different elevator bank than the one that would have taken him to the offices of the NFL on the 5th floor. Joining us now is retired NYPD detective David Sarney. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know there's a lot of heavy hearts with the NYPD this week and everybody in New York because of what took place in Midtown earlier this week. Shane Tamura, and I think a big piece today that I'm looking at, because when he was found, he has this note talking about CTE, and he's targeting the NFL headquarters. CTE's been an issue with the NFL, but then we have this note where he also felt like he was a disappointment to his parents, reportedly. He claimed in the note that was found on him that he played in the NFL. He never played in the NFL. I don't think he even played college football. What do you make about the motive and kind of the search for the motive at this point?
Thank you for having me again. Condolences to the families and everyone. And, the NYPD is suffering, as everyone knows. But to talk about the murderer, and that's what he is. He's a murderer. It seems like there's grasping at straws with this. I don't think, he claims CTE. No one could determine that. He apparently had migraine medication on him in his possession when he went to the Park Avenue location and shot himself. But reality is, it seems to be a mishmash of reasons why he did what he did. And sometimes people will focus on that white whale. They're going to be, and I put this up the catcher in the rye, that they're going to save the world by doing something they consider altruistic, where his moral compass is, I'm going to do something to prove that CTE is a danger. And I would go out, leave my home in Vegas, drive to New York, double park a car, take a long gun, walk brazenly into the location, assassinate a cop, murder others for a cause that he has real no right to, value to. This is something, did he make into his head? Did he make this a motive to make himself feel more important than he is? I mean, that's what you're seeing. It's not all about the CTE, because if you don't even know you have CTE until, unfortunately, you're dead and they check your brain to find it. Could have been something else, and he just decided to declare himself having CTE and fell onto this agenda against the NFL about concussions, the concussion, CTE and concussion protocols and like that. You're going to see more of it come out, and I think that's what's going to come out. And he's not the avenging angel that people think he's going to be, and trying to save the world from concussions.
No, and he drove across country. It appears he drove straight to 345 Park Avenue because the commissioner said that he was in New Jersey around 4:30. Shots were fired around 6:30. He double parks the car and walks in. And at any point, um, he could stop. He didn't have to do that. He could have, like, oh, he was in Colorado Saturday, and then they track him through. This was not mental health type thing. I struggle with just kind of blaming it on mental health or blaming it on CTE, especially with some of the information that we're getting. And that's just kind of my opinion on this. As we look at what detectives have found thus far in Las Vegas, and part of this story too is there's an associate, according to the police commissioner, of Shane Tamura, who bought him the lower receiver for the AR-15 style rifle that he used in this attack. What type of trouble could that associate be in? And I know with New York and Nevada, there are very different laws related to firearms, but how could this play out?
Now, this is something you could look at. Maybe this goes to a federal level. The use of a building this firearm. What Nevada laws state or allow them to do with long guns such as this. And in New York, they're banned. New York State, they're banned. And that's a big issue about how do we do these situations of banning guns and the like. What issues may happen in Nevada will be dependent on Nevada state laws. But can the federal government be involved? Can the feds actually be involved in a prosecution by bringing this weapon across state lines and being used in a criminal action? And that's the thing. Did he get the part of the weapon with false information, false documentation? Did he say it was going to be for him and then he gave it to his friend? So there are things you're going to have to look at. But again, New York laws and what they're learning and investigating in New York State, they may be able to bring it to um, the federal courts and see what they can do at that point, and see what Nevada would do if as far as prosecution. And this happens when you have interstate situations like this. What happens in Nevada is what happens in New York, and vice versa. So I think what they're gathering is more intel to find out what happened. So when we can talk to the prosecutor's office and see if the New York City DA's office can actually forward this to the feds.
And when we talk about a lower receiver for an AR-15 style rifle, I don't own a weapon. Is that the piece that would be, say, I buy it and it's mine in my name, and then I give it to you, and that's like a straw purchase for it? Is that the piece that is regulated by the government or traced by whether it's the state of Nevada or whoever it may be?
Well, that's the issue. Now you're buying piece guns. It's pieces of a gun. So that's going to be that. I can't go into the in-depth laws about that type of weaponry or how it's purchased, but it's a straw purchase. He bought it to give it to someone else. Now, can now the ATF look at this and say, wait a minute, you're not supposed, you can't do this? They could look into the federal laws as far as that is concerned. You know, he was allowed a concealed carry permit, and he claimed to have moments of suicidal thoughts. So Nevada laws on and the laws on guns and the possession of guns is way different than it is in New York. So this is the problem. We can go there and investigate it, but as far as what NYPD detectives can do there is extremely limited because they're out of the jurisdiction.
And he bought a handgun with that concealed carry purchase last month in June. I think it was June 16th that I had in what the police commissioner said. What do we know about how, once someone gets a concealed carry permit, what it takes to actually get that taken away?
Well, that's it. Again, depends on the laws of the state, and that's what it comes down to. We can see New York State has red flag laws. If you have an order of protection filed against you, domestic incident, you may not be able to carry a firearm. You have to go through a course and be certified to do that. I don't know what they did in Nevada as far as allowing him to maintain the permit after he has claimed suicidal thoughts and had psychiatric episodes. That's something that maybe Nevada would look into as far as that policy. But the Second Amendment, and I'm not going to go into the whole political aspect to it. You have a right to bear arms. What he did, what this murderer did, is take a gun that many people use legally and go across country and murder people for an agenda that is slowly creeping away the fact that he's doing this to save the world from the NFL's policies on concussions.
And sadly, we've had so many examples of mass shootings, mass casualty incidents. And when you look at the motive, and something just in covering these stories that's always stood out to me is there's kind of the headline. Maybe someone has an extremist view, there's some political ideology they follow, but then you strip that away and there's that person who maybe they were a failure to their family, maybe their marriage fell apart, maybe their business was awful and they just were bad at that part of their life. And it seems like for him that's almost what we're getting to here with that note, is there's always something that then leads to the headline of why I did it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you're looking at. There are people with very extreme views who are never violent. But when people need something to adhere to grip on to make their life meaningful, they may go into that. They may find an item. They may find a belief system. They may find a person that they become infatuated with, and that becomes their sole purpose in life because their life is empty in some way that they weren't successful. We see this unfortunately when it comes to active shooters and the radicalization of individuals. We see all the portions as to how it happens. They start becoming more involved with social media, start becoming more distant. Maybe become their emotions change, their whole look on life changes. We never know as to when they'll do it. And this could have been the whole issue with this murderer is he saw this as his potential way of making him look better and being that avenging angel for those who had CTE and were never diagnosed. So he focused on that. He praised the documentary about concussions. He praised about the movie, talking about it. So that became his way of being important. And that importance takes away who he is as a person because he obviously seems to have feelings that he was inadequate. This gave him purpose. The radicalization, however, the violent aspect to it, that is like we don't know when that decides to happen, when that snaps, and it seems to have been there. But any time within that time frame between Vegas and New York, he could have turned around. He didn't because he saw this as a purpose. I mean, he tried to go into the NFL's offices and made a mistake at the elevator. And how many deaths would have happened if more deaths would have happened? The NYPD, we can react, but no one expected this to happen. And as secure as the facility will be, you have a person with an agenda, a violent agenda. Stopping it is a problem. As you can see, we can be reactionary. Police can be reactionary at this point. But it really comes back down to the person. How do you stop a person from who's this violently motivated doing anything? And this was not a target that anyone saw coming. I mean, the NFL, has their problems, but never to the point of someone wanting to come in there and kill everybody because of the concussion issues.
Right. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and there is so much we don't know about CTE. And I certainly know people, I played high school football and people I know who had concussions and all of that. I cannot remember, the people who have either ended their lives or lost their lives because of CTE, like a Junior Seau, of going in and committing something like this. It feels very different, even though we've had a lot of controversies involving CTE and tragedy involving CTE. Knowing that the shooter is dead and this was a lone incident, according to police, they know this at that point, and you want to learn more about why he did it. What is the point of the investigation going forward? What is the mission of everybody involved, knowing that this person is no longer on this earth?
Well, the thing is, we always want to get a profile, and I think it also helps us trying to later on study individuals who become these radicalized active shooters in any realm, in any type of realm. His realm was the NFL. We've seen people do it for political reasons, for social reasons. It helps us study that, but it's also to see we want to make as an investigator, you want to make sure the truth comes out. You want to make sure you have all the facts laid to bear. Or were there any other people who knew about this who helped? We're looking at the individuals who bought the parts of the gun. Was there anything else along the lines? Did anyone financially support him doing this? So we always want to make sure we get everything done so we can say, this is what we have, these are the facts, and this is the truth as to who this shooter is and his motives for it. Sometimes we find them, and it seems very obvious here, but there are other times when, so for example, the Las Vegas shooting, uh, Mandalay Bay, you didn't know. There's nothing that's been told. The Austin, Texas bomber. There was really no true motive to why they did what they did, but we're trying to do that so this way, maybe we can prevent people from becoming that active shooter, that menace, that murderer.
His dad, it's being reported, was a longtime member of the LAPD. He grew up, Shane Tamura, in Los Angeles for a period of time. Then his family moves to Vegas. We haven't heard from them as of yet, but we have seen cases where parents, because of their children and the decisions they make, whether it's a school shooting, I think of the Crumbleys in Michigan, for example, but their son in this case was 27 years old. What type of questions could there be for his parents? Because he reportedly still lived at home in Vegas with them.
What the relationship was. What was your relationship with your son? What did you see anything change in any transitions in his uh, belief systems? Did he become more fatalistic, more nihilistic? What were things that you saw him change? That's really comes down to, because we've seen his high school football coach said he was a good kid. Everyone said he was a good kid. How do the good kids go bad? And that's I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychoanalyst. There are times there's moments of stress and trauma that may develop and have someone turn bad in a sense. But he lived a relatively moderate lifestyle where you didn't see anything that tragic or that serious, traumatic, at least from the outskirts. Living with, being a cop and being a cop for 27 years, a lot of, as a parent, sometimes you're not where you're supposed to be when you need to be there. So is that something that comes into play? And it's not to blame parenting at this point, because he's 27 years old. He made his decision, and now and this is what we have, unfortunately. But it's something to look at, so maybe we can help future events from not happening. And that's why the studies come in. And again, we're talking as a detective, the investigation part of it, because we want to get an understanding of these people are, who the perpology is. I kind of call it perpology, who the perp is, where did this happen, where did it go wrong, and then you could have the the psychological aspect of this. Look into it a little further, and this is the reason why you get people study serial killers. I won't study them, but we look to investigate those people who commit those murders, and that'll help maybe later on in the academic way.
And I started this by saying it's just such a heavy week in New York for a lot of reasons. Heavy week for the NYPD. The NYPD losing one of its own in this shooting, and then you also have three other people. They all had families. They were all people who were just going to work and probably just about to go home for the night on a regular Monday. For you as an investigator, what is it like on a week like this? So often we focus on the response to a mass shooting situation, but now this investigative part of it and the weight and the emotion of everything that happened. How do you go about your job as the days go on, where you need to get information, but clearly, I mean, we're all human. The emotions of what happened are so heavy.
Well, here's the things that we talk about. Being a cop is we kind of take every situation, we compartmentalize it. The best way of putting it is you put it to the side because the job is more important. The necessity to get this case, you know, fully investigated is what matters. To get to the truth, to make that arrest, to make that apprehension. That's what we're looking to do. So, emotionally, the emotions part we have to put set to aside. Now, is that a positive way of dealing with these things? That all depends. I mean, you can really feel emotionally involved in it, but you can't let your emotions involve yourself, because it biases your case investigation. It biases your work, what you're doing as far as the work is concerned. So you have to go into this with that really stoic attitude. And you know, this this cop who died on duty, that's what happened. He was off duty until he's on duty. was when he was shot. To see that family suffer the way it is, it kills you. It bothers me still right now. But you have to put it to the side to do the job that's needed to be done, and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, just such a story that is so many emotions in this investigation. That part of it, we'll see what answers come from it. Retired NYPD Detective David Sarney. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you much. Stay safe.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.